Did we just see the best innings of all time, the best match of all time, or the best chase of all time? Maybe we did. Welcome to the shiny side, where we look back at Australia's crazy win over Afghanistan. We're still absorbing what we've seen. And with us today, we have for the second time on the show, Ahmed Malik. How are you doing, Ahmed?
Good. What a game for you. Like
Yeah,
seriously,
seriously.
I'm still struggling to comprehend what we saw. And I mean,
Yeah.
you can't write a script like this, right?
Yeah.
If you were told to write a story on a game of cricket, you wouldn't even imagine this.
I think it's too early for us to even understand or absorb what's happened. But just to kick things off, just to kind of summarize the game in 33 seconds, which I will do now. Afghanistan
You won't
batted
need 33
first.
seconds.
Afghanistan batted first. Zadran got 129 not out. And they got 60 odd in the last 5 overs to somehow get 291. Everybody else scored about 20 odd in the top order. Australia chasing 291. 40 went from 41 for 1 to 91 for 7. And then Glenn Maxwell got 201 not out, and they won by 3 wickets. And yeah, it's just what we've seen today is probably one of the craziest knocks of all time. But Ahmed, what's your initial reaction to what you've seen and to Maxi's knock?
I'm still digesting it, right? I mean, I've seen some great one-day knocks. Lara comes to mind when he chased down 289 versus Pakistan, made 152 in the Basit Ali game.
Yes.
Salim Malik 72 in Calcutta. These are just things that you don't even imagine happening. But to continuously do it for 200 runs, they were 91 for 7.
Yeah.
Right, and they needed 200 more, and the man got it on his own. Right, Cummins made 12. Right,
and
Cummins
also
12
I think for the last 55 runs, he was barely running, right? Because he was also cramping like crazy. So they barely took any singles after that.
So what is astounding to see is, right, everything from the upper body, right, upper body strength, and he was pummeling it. Those shots were big hits. Yeah. Right, and he was picking the gaps when he, hit a boundary. It went into the gaps. He didn't move his feet. He was just playing through the line of the ball, and
I think he got. That's how he got the last 60, 70 odd runs playing in that fashion, where he was barely moving his feet. And some of those shots, I don't even know what you call them. They're not reverse sweeps; they're reverse laps of sort, which are going over third man. Right? Those were insane. I'd love to see the wagon wheel. I'm guessing he probably got 40 or 50 runs behind square on the offside, playing those reverse shots.
But he's always does that, right? He's really good. That is his get out of jail shot generally. But some of the shots, considering that, I mean, for those of us that have played cricket and seen a lot of cricket, you don't really understand the magnitude of how difficult it actually is when you're not moving your feet and you are just playing through the line of the ball. Yeah. It is truly outstanding. For some of us, you may remember Gordon Greenidge played a similar inning on one leg against England in the 80s, where he scored 200 odd on one leg as well. But that was a test. But this was just something else.
Unreal. And I guess we have to start at the top, though, right? So if we just go back slightly to Afghanistan deciding to bat, what did you make of that decision? And them also opting to select 4 spinners. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I would have done the same, right? At that point in time, Afghanistan has 4 spinners. Their spinners do well. I think that the plan was always to put runs on the board and get scoreboard pressure and have the spinners come in and the larger boundaries at Wankhede. Yes, it is a batting friendly pitch, but there were larger boundaries. If they could get a couple of early inroads, they would be able to, apply that pressure. And I think that was the game blueprint, and they would have done it as well if it wasn't just one human being playing the greatest inning of all time, right? I mean, 91 for 7, like probably 1 in a million you're going to lose from there, right?
And also, I think if you look at this World Cup, right? So we got a lot of talk about the World Cup being high scoring show, but before today, only twice has a score above 285 been chased in this World Cup. So the generally speaking, the numbers suggest if you score 285 plus in the World Cup, you have pretty good odds of defending it. And clearly, if it wasn't for a superhuman effort today, it looks like Afghanistan was on track to do it today as well. I think we have to talk about, I mean, obviously it's going to get overshadowed massively, but I think Zadran scored the first World Cup 100 for Afghanistan today, which was a good effort from him. He scored about 129, 143 balls batted through the innings. And there were 5 other guys who got 20 odd in the top order. So they kept losing wickets per se, but they had ample partnership just enough to get to the end where him and Rashid got about 60 in the last 5 overs, which at that point seemed like it was a brilliant score. But what did you make of Afghanistan's batting? And also, if I have to ask, Australia's bowling, would you say that seems to be a bit of a trouble area for them at this point?
See, I mean, before this game, I think Australia has generally been bowling well. But I think Afghanistan are no longer the whipping boys of world cricket that they used to be, right? So I think that they batted really well. They batted really well throughout the tournament, right?
Yeah.
And I think they played to the merit of the bowling. I don't think the bowling is terrible. I think that these pitches generally have another 50 runs in them than pitches around the world. I think they are slightly more conducive to batting and higher scores. I don't think Australia's bowling is terrible. I don't think they're in trouble. I think that every team in this World Cup, barring India, is going for runs.
Yeah.
Right? It's par for the course. Like 270, 280 is par for the course. I think that the little cameo Rashid played at the end, propelled them. But Afghanistan they've impressed everyone in this tournament, right? They've come up. They've really come up. And at 91 for 7, you were thinking that they've beaten Pakistan, England, and Australia.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think generally speaking, if you look at Afghanistan, right, before the World Cup, my view was really good spinners and good openers. So if you get the openers out, especially if you get Gurbaz early, they won't get too many. But clearly, the second part of that statement is no longer true. They've consistently batted very sensibly, very calmly, and really managed the middle overs, and they're batting really well. So that's no longer true for Afghanistan for sure. But again, this is as close as you can get, right? You make 291, you have a team at 91 for 7. I mean, you pretty much have played all your cards right up to that point.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be Mujib tonight. The catch that he dropped was criminal. Yeah. But I think these are places where these teams will falter slightly, right? Coping with the pressure, coping with not being familiar, being in that situation. Yeah. I don't think Maxwell was outstanding, no doubt, and he played an innings of a lifetime. But do you think that he would have been able to pull off an inning like this against India, against Pakistan, against New Zealand, South Africa? Would they have let the game slip? I think the inexperience of the Afghani team not being in those positions sort of, may have missed a trick. But once again, nothing taking away from Maxwell, 201 runs of 120 balls.
I get your point, right? Because I think there's a lot you can do to kind of, get the ball out of his comfort zone, etc., etc. They were essentially bowling into his arc for the most part of it, right? And again, most people would not have been able to do what he pulled off. So full credit to him. But you're right. I think had this team of Afghanistan would almost never be in this situation. They would never be in a situation where they were so dominant, but they were the ones who had the position to lose in the game, right? Against the major side.
Exactly.
So the games they won have been very different kind of games so far.
Yeah. I mean, so, when you're not in that situation, I mean, it's easier for me to say this sitting out here, but I would have slowed the pace of the ball much more, right? He was taking advantage of the ball coming on the bat. When there's a batsman who's clearly struggling with his footwork, flight the ball, slow it down, make him go towards the ball. I don't think they did enough of that, right? They didn't deviate from their game plan, and it's really easy for me to say this sitting here, but when you're in that situation, I guess where you just there's a semi-final qualification on the line, and you're about an hour and a half ago you were sitting pretty, and you were like, this is happening for us.
Yeah. And one of the things that Ian Morgan said, right? So someone interviewed him and said, what, in that Stokes game, Stoke went for 6s with Bradford, if you would go back now, would you do anything differently in the last over? And the one thing he said I would do differently is, he said I would slow Stokes down, by which he meant I would go up to him and talk to him, which I was doing, but I would take the ball from him and just give it 30 seconds between every delivery, just to kind of slow things down, let him reassess his thoughts rather than just trying to go ball after ball after ball. And I feel like there was that kind of thinking that was required from Afghanistan today, which we did not see.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, full credit to Maxwell. I mean, if you remember, up until the time Rashid came back to bowl his last over, he was not taking any runs. And then when Rashid came back, he realized that this is one bowler who he will have to use his feet against.
Yeah.
And he literally, urged Cummins to take that run off the first ball, right?
Yeah.
Which showed that he was aware that he will struggle.
Yeah.
He will struggle. Which once again, you can't say enough about what Maxwell did today, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of his thought process, the execution.
Yeah, you're right. Because I was watching this and I was like, hang on, could this be the best knock of the World Cup? Is this better than Fakhr's knock 3 days ago? And then eventually I'm thinking, is this the best knock of all time? This is the highest score in a second innings, by the way, by anyone. No one scored 201 before.
I mean, for me, hands down, this is the greatest knock of all time, right? I mean, the only, other knocks that may give more weight is Fakhr's knock was in a near knockout for Pakistan, right? They had to win. Australia, I think that even if they had lost today, would still have qualified for the semis. So from that perspective, the magnitude of the victory is not as great as what the magnitude of Pakistan's victory in terms of the entire overall scenario of the World Cup. But I think that if you take it on a standalone basis, nothing comes close.
And also, I think if you look at again, if you remember Fakhr's knock, right? So Fakhr, even though it was a must-win game, I think by the time the game ended, he had done enough. Even if he had gotten out, there was a good chance Pakistan would have made it anyway. But with Maxwell, even if he got out with maybe 25 to get, chances are Australia would have lost the game, right? Because it would be very hard for the others to finish it off. So there was no margin for error. He had to go all the way.
No margin for error. Absolutely. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how, with the ICC greatest innings, where this ranks. I'm sure we'll be reading about it in the next few days. There will be a lot written on this inning.
So I think what this means now is that we have 3 teams that have certainly qualified for the semifinals. We have India had already qualified in South Africa. Australia has joined them. And it looks like for all intents and purposes, Australia and South Africa will finish 2nd or 3rd. So we kind of know who they are playing each other in a semifinal. Now the question becomes between Afghanistan, New Zealand, and Pakistan, who makes it as the 4th team. And at this point, you'd have to say New Zealand is probably the favorite to do that. But again, I think we've spoken about the permutations before. It depends on the weather in a couple of days, and also on how well Pakistan can beat England, and if they can beat Sri Lanka also.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's as clear cut as everyone is thinking that Pakistan stands no chance. I think that given that we will be playing last, we will be playing for the net run rate if New Zealand wins. Right. And I've been following the weather forecast in Bengaluru every day. I mean, I check it more than the time these days. But I'm hoping for some divine intervention. We've had, I said to my friends that there are 9 miracles needed for Pakistan to win the World Cup, and we've delivered on 5 of those 9. Right. Wow. So I'm hoping. Also, 4 more to go, man.
So I get this comment a lot of people saying, do you want to go in the World Cup because you got a point on rain? And I have to talk about this. In the last World Cup, New Zealand's game against India got rained off. And in that league, India lost to nobody. Our game against Sri Lanka got rained off. So we potentially missed on an easier point in the league, right? And that's how New Zealand actually made the semifinal, right? So this stuff happens. If anything, karma owes us one, right? Karma owes Pakistan one washed out match against Sri Lanka for New Zealand. So let's see.
For sure. But I mean, I know this conversation today isn't about the Pakistani team, but I think Pakistan really going to these tournaments needs to reassess how they factor in net run rate, because they never do. Right? They never take that into account. Right? You look at the game against Bangladesh. We could have finished it 5 overs sooner, right? Other games where we've slowed down or we've tried, even in losing causes, we haven't tried to take the game deep. Look what New Zealand did against South Africa when forget the name of the bowler, Matt Henry came out to bat,
and Glenn Phillips.
Matt Henry came out to bat when he was injured, and they got another 35-40 runs, and that may be the difference. But anyway, we're not talking about.
So I think one more thing I want to quickly talk about is something which we haven't spoken about on the show yet. And I have to ask, do you think Shakib is okay? Uski zindagi mein kuch ho raha hai? Like, why is he behaving like this on the cricket field? Like, what happened yesterday?
it is one of the most deplorable things I've ever seen happen on the cricket field, right? It is absolutely ludicrous. You cannot international cricket's been around for about 150 years. By my rough calculation, there've probably been about 1.5 million dismissals in the last 150 years in all formats of cricket, in international cricket. And not a single timed out occurrence has ever happened, right? Like you said, what's going on in his life? I mean, he akin this to being war. I don't know what war he's waging. They're not winning anything. It is an inconsequential game. Why do you want to do something that will, put your name in a negative light, right? I mean, why does this want to be your legacy? Like, if you remember Trevor Chappell, right? Trevor Chappell's underarm ball. No one remembers his career for anything else.
Yeah, that's what he's known for. That's ball, right? That's what he's known for. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what he's not known for. But Shakib, he has achieved things in his career, right? He's a well-respected person in the cricketing world. In leagues around the world, he's well respected as an international cricketer, as an all-rounder, respected. And the way Matthews just spoke to him, and he tapped him on the shoulder, and Shakib just like shunned him. There's a camaraderie when you play cricket for so long. They've been playing against each other since under 19 days. People. This is not how you behave, right? At the end, yes, it's in the rules. Even though that's a separate debate, was the rule followed to its T? Yeah. I don't think so. But there's certain things that are in the rules, and I was just making a joke that if Kohli ever plays a test match against Pakistan and he walks out to bat and it's his last test match, you give him a standing ovation, and then by the time he gets there, you appeal for timed out, right? I mean that's the sort of thing it is, that you have just created something and you can take advantage of the rule. Will that make it okay? The rule's still there. Will that make it okay? The spirit of cricket is a very, very integral part of the game.
Also, I think it's important to mention, right? So we compare this a lot to the Mankat, right? Regardless of where you sit on that debate, there, what's clear, regardless of what you think, is that by stepping a few steps, the batsman is gaining an advantage, right? Here, Absolutely. By taking 10 extra seconds or 20 extra seconds, he's not getting any kind of advantage. It's not even in play yet. So it's completely misses the... And it makes no sense to me. Like, why would he do that?
It makes no sense, right? I mean, once again, but Shakib has had a history of being a bit of a rogue and a bad boy, right? I mean, in a domestic game, he knocked the stumps down. Once when the umpire didn't give it out. Then there was another time where he disagreed with the umpire when he wasn't bowling. Then he made some lewd gestures in a game as well.
Yeah, true.
As you said, kuch ho raha uski zindagi mein jo hame nahi pata.
So moving on, because we will never finish this conversation about Shakib, right? Because there's no answer here. We have a couple of questions coming in from Azlan Fazal, who's 12 years old, lives in Singapore. His first question is, what happens if a super over is tied? So that's Azlan, that's a good question, but now the rule has changed. If a super over is tied, you actually go on to play another super over. And you keep doing that until the super over is decided. So I don't believe there's a limit on, is there, Ahmed, on how many super overs you bat? You keep playing them, I think, until...
I don't believe there is. I think it is up until there is a clear winner.
Yeah. And the other question will amuse you, Ahmed. The other question from the Azlan also is that, has Pakistan never beaten India in an ODI World Cup? And the answer, Azlan, is no, we haven't. Pakistan's never beaten. I think Pakistan's played India 8 times and lost all 8 of them. Having said that, if you look at overall India-Pakistan matches, Pakistan has won more than India has. But in the World Cup, Pakistan has never beaten India, Azlan. So I hope that answers your question.
Azlan, if it's any sort of consolation to you, we're 8-0. But we'll beat them in the semifinals because we'll ping them in the semi. So that one victory should raise the 8.
You heard it here first on the shiny side. But before we finish up, Emma, there's a small matter of a game coming up tomorrow, and there's England playing Netherlands. I would ordinarily put up the likely 11s, but there's nothing really on the cards for either team. I think England is obviously going home, and Netherlands also is pretty much it's done. So you want to take a pick for predicting the winner tomorrow?
Yeah, I think England will win. They're still a half decent side, regardless of the results that you've seen in this World Cup. The people who actually, form the blueprint of the modern one day.
Yeah.
Right, over the past couple of years, they have really defined how it plays. They've just somehow gone off the boil completely, right? We haven't been able to see even that slight bit of spark. But they have to come good one day, and I'm hoping it's tomorrow and not on.
I mean, regardless of who wins this World Cup, undoubtedly England is the most successful and dominant side of the last 8 years in white ball cricket, right? There's no two ways about it, regardless of who wins it, right?
Absolutely.
So it's sad to see it end for them in this fashion. But before we finish up, there's a quick question linked to tomorrow's game. England has faced Netherlands 6 times in ODI cricket. How many games has the Netherlands won?
Twice, I believe.
The answer is 0. I believe the games they won have been in T20s.
T20,
so I remember one in the T20 World Cup in England, in fact. I think
the 2009, yes.
Yes, and there's one more game perhaps.
They chased 190 odd,
Yeah. I remember the winning moment with the Dutch running out. But good stuff, Ahmed. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks, Reese. Always glad to be here.
I think the fact that we will always remember this one for the day we saw potentially the best innings of the World Cup, if not the best innings we've ever watched. But
I'm good. I'm probably going to get off this and probably go and find highlights to watch again, because I still can't believe it happened.
I didn't catch the early part of his innings, so I would love to see that. But for those of you watching, if you have a comment on whether you think this is the greatest innings of all time or not, please leave a comment. Like the video, subscribe to our channel. We'll be back tomorrow night after the England-Netherlands game, and we will also be previewing the New Zealand-Sri Lanka game, including the weather for that game tomorrow night. So stay tuned to the shiny side.